This review has been such a long time coming on the channel. Let's talk about Legacy of the Brightwash by Krystle Matar. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is the Legacy of the Brightwash book review. I know there are lots of people who wanted me to read this. I wasn't ready a little while ago, but I've read it now and I'm absolutely on board. Before we check out the review, make sure you check in the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord should you want to come along for the ride. Now, Legacy of the Brightwash was a 5-star read, so going into it, you know this is going to be a bit of a gush. This was brutal. This was a brutal and beautiful exploration of humanity done through a fictional lens. What Krystle Matar has made here is something truly special. As always, we'll start with the plot. Who would tattoo a child? Tashaway Blackwood, Tin Man of the Authority, asks himself this very question as he looks down at the body of a limbless dead girl washed up on the Brightwash. This was the case that would change everything for him. Tashaway has always followed the law, protected it, and enforced it as part of his day-to-day, never questioning his role as a regulation officer. So why is he the only one that cared about this child on the shore? Taking down the number on the girl's neck was only just the beginning. When he crosses paths with a local journalist, the story of a young boy in the same condition comes to the forefront. It becomes apparent that this case is now larger than anyone first thought. As Tashaway starts to question everything he has ever stood for within the Authority, more and more secrets of the Authority come out through the cracks. Will he have the strength to stand against everything he has ever believed in to break the case? That is the plot very loosely. I say very loosely because, in my opinion, the plot of this book is very much secondary. It is a character-driven book first. Legacy of the Brightwash was nothing short of incredible, in my opinion. While the subject matter of this book is incredibly grim, Matar has delivered an unapologetic deep dive into the human condition and how we as people respond to trauma. Now, this book is incredibly thematic heavy. There are two main themes, in my opinion, which really demand the reader's attention throughout this book. The first is authority as a tool for power versus corruption, and the other is how we respond to trauma and use it to grow or to allow it to poison our existence as we continue on in our lives. Our main character has never questioned his place in the Authority before and what he's had to do to get the job done. But over the last couple of years, his observations and experiences have led him to believe that perhaps all is not right with how the Authority and military groups treat the world and the people around them. As he reflects on the good or bad of an authoritative body, the reader is encouraged to do the same. I felt myself reflecting on my own life and things that I'd seen around me in the name of good, and it really makes us dig into what determines what is good or right and what isn't. Conversations around manipulation and secrets of those in power also rise to the surface and grip the reader as you least expect it. From these themes, we come to trauma, and while there is an exploration of how those in authority can create and enhance a traumatic experience, I would argue that multiple aspects of trauma are explored in this story, whether it be physical or mental or psychosomatic or familial. The list goes on. There was so much to unpack in this book. Each character had some sort of story to share, some form of history that they were carrying on their shoulders, and each story was unpacked with so much respect and care for the humans inside of these shells that we had even in a fictional setting. So let's move on to our characters because this story was all for them. I mentioned earlier I would argue that the plot is very much underlying for about 80% of this book as we unpack the people that make up this world. Every single person in this story has a purpose, and every single person was morally grey in some way, shape, or form. Nobody is perfect. The way the people of this story were unpacked was remarkable. No one was left out or made lesser than. Even the side characters were well fleshed out and able to jump into the main storyline without a second look. Matar was masterful, in my opinion, in the way that these stories were brought to life. From the political outlook of one Miss Ilya Winter using Tashaway for an advantage in more ways than one, Stella Whiterock, the woman who stole our main protagonist's heart that had an extremely compelling backstory. And then we have Jason, the son sentenced to death in the Rift for not registering his talent or the magic of this world with the Dominion. And then we come to Ceridwen. I don't think I have read of a child more self-aware, more charming, or more into baked goods than this beautiful young girl who, I must admit, weaseled her way into my feelings during this reading experience. These characters didn't just have a place in this story, they were celebrated for who they were. Finally, let's talk about the magic system used within the story here, which also led into some of the other themes. We could be here for hours if I'm going to continue gushing on how much I enjoyed Legacy of the Brightwash, so we will leave it with the magic as the last thing. The tainted or the talented, depending on who you talk to, were one of two things. They were either useful members of society or they were prisoners, depending on if they were compliant. Any person with a talent must register to be put to work in the Dominion wherever the Dominion sees fit. If you don't, you are sent to a place called the Rift to live out your days as a prisoner, devoid of touch, love, and freedom, unless, of course, you were in the breeding program, used as the Dominion's own personal power supply of those magically inclined. The talents explored in this book were well thought out and used fairly liberally throughout the story. An example of the magic we saw could be seen in Stella, the Whisperer, who could ease someone's pain through end of life, and Rodrishi, a healer who pulled parts of himself to stitch others together, and the list goes on. But these were the two most thoroughly explored, in my opinion, throughout the story. The use of the talented and the oppression of those who chose not to register with the authority could lead into more conversations around the thematics, but I'll just say for now that this book gave the reader a lot to think about. Legacy of the Brightwash is one of those books that leaves you with lasting effects. It'll have you thinking about how your own life has been shaped by the themes long after the final page has been closed. This was a masterpiece. I cannot wait to read book 2 and see where it goes and to see where some of these characters develop and more exploration of those themes. If you're going into this book, just know that it can get pretty heavy, but it is written in a way that is very accessible to most readers. I went the audio route and I had a really good time with the narration. That was Legacy of the Brightwash by Krystle Matar. Have you read this one? I know a lot of my buddies here have loved it and have tried to get me to read it, and it just took me a little while to come around, but I'm absolutely on board now. Let me know if you're going to read it in the comments down below. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.